Here is something that sounds impossible. Humans were probably communicating long before they could speak. Not communicating badly, not just screaming at predators and hoping the group understood the general vibe. Our ancestors may have shared warnings, intentions, emotions, requests, and even simple plans without anything we would recognize as a spoken word. That means the world before speech was not silent. It was crowded with meaning. A glance toward tall grass could redirect an entire group. A raised hand could stop movement. A tense face could announce danger before anyone saw it. A repeated motion might request a tool, imitate an animal, or show someone exactly where to strike a stone. And suddenly, the classic image of prehistoric humans standing around grunting like confused coworkers during a broken Zoom call starts to fall apart. Because speech and language are not the same thing. Speech is one delivery system. Language is the deeper ability to turn thoughts into shared symbols. Modern sign languages prove that complex grammar, humor, memory, and storytelling do not require sound. The mouth is useful, but it does not own meaning. So the real mystery is not how silent creatures suddenly invented words. The real mystery is how bodies full of expressions, gestures, calls, rhythms, and intentions slowly became capable of building a shared world. There was probably no single morning when one unusually ambitious ancestor pointed at a rock, named it, and launched human civilization before lunch. Speech was more likely the newest layer in an ancient communication system that had already been operating for millions of years. Before humans spoke with their mouths, they may have been speaking with almost everything else. Imagine trying to survive in a world where nobody has invented the sentence, "There is a lion behind you." That sounds inconvenient, but it does not mean your options are limited to panicking loudly and becoming lunch. Your face would already be broadcasting information. Widened eyes, tightened muscles, frozen posture, and a sudden shift in attention could warn others before any deliberate signal was made. Fear has always been a terrible secret keeper. Then there was gaze looking toward a tree, a carcass, a rival, or a moving patch of grass could pull another person's attention in the same direction. But this only becomes true communication when the other person understands something deeper. You are not merely looking at an object. You want them to look at it too. That ability is called shared attention, and it sounds simple until you realize how much mental machinery it requires. The receiver must track your eyes, identify the target, recognize your intention, and decide why it matters. It is basically prehistoric hyperlinking. Pointing makes the system even more powerful. One finger can connect two minds to something outside both of them. Food, danger, a path, a missing child, a suspicious animal making terrible life choices near the camp. Hands could also create miniature performances. A person might imitate throwing a spear, dragging something heavy, climbing a slope, or striking stone. These gestures were useful because their shapes could resemble their meanings. You did not need a dictionary to understand someone pretending to hit an object repeatedly. Touch added another channel. A hand on the shoulder could restrain, reassure, recruit, or reconcile. Grooming could strengthen alliances. Pulling someone backward could communicate urgency with the subtle elegance of being physically removed from danger. Posture mattered too. A lowered body could signal submission. An expanded chest could threaten. Turning away might reject interaction, while approaching slowly could reduce tension. Long before humans developed formal etiquette, bodies were already negotiating social contracts. None of these signals worked alone. Their meaning depended on context, repetition, relationships, and what everyone in the group already knew. The same raised hand might mean stop during a hunt, wait during travel, or do not touch my food unless you are prepared to make this extremely personal. Early communication was therefore less like a vocabulary list and more like an improvised system of glances, movements, expressions, and expectations. And once a group repeatedly used the same signals, improvisation could begin turning into convention. For years, one of the biggest debates about language origins has sounded almost like an evolutionary courtroom drama. Did communication begin with the hands or with the voice? The case for gesture is strong. Hands can imitate actions, describe shapes, trace directions, and point toward objects. A gesture can look like what it means, which gives it an immediate advantage. Pretend to throw something, and another person may understand the idea before anyone agrees on a sound for throw. Vocal signals are more difficult. A random noise does not naturally resemble a sharp stone, a distant river, or an animal track. Without a shared code, sound can seem frustratingly abstract, so gesture appears to win. Until darkness arrives. Hands are useless when nobody can see them. They are also less effective in thick vegetation, across distance, or when the intended receiver is facing the wrong direction. And early humans had another problem. Their hands were constantly busy carrying food, holding infants, shaping tools, climbing, or handling objects that could seriously ruin the afternoon if dropped. The voice offered something gestures could not. Sound could travel without eye contact. It could reach several people at once. It could warn someone hidden behind a tree. It could continue while the hands were occupied. A sharp cry might stop movement immediately, while a softer call could maintain contact between individuals who could not see each other. Vocalization also carried emotional information automatically. Pitch, volume, rhythm, and tension could reveal fear, aggression, pain, excitement, or reassurance. Long before words became precise, voices could already tell listeners how urgent a situation was. This is where the debate starts collapsing. The most likely answer is not that gesture defeated sound, or that sound replaced gesture. Early communication probably worked more like a badly funded multimedia department. Every available channel was being used at once. A person could point toward the forest, widen their eyes, lower their body, and produce a short warning call. None of those signals alone needed to carry the entire message. Together they created something much clearer. This multimodal system remains familiar because humans still use it. We change our tone, move our hands, shift our posture, and manipulate facial expressions while speaking. Even when the words say, "I am fine," the rest of the body may submit a completely different report. Speech did not emerge from one channel winning an evolutionary competition. It emerged from several channels learning to cooperate. At some point, a signal stopped being merely understandable and became something far more powerful. It became conventional. Imagine one early human teaching another how to strike a stone. At first, the lesson might require a full performance. Hold the core here, angle the hammer there, hit with this amount of force, and try not to remove a finger from the company directory. The teacher could exaggerate the motion, slow it down, reposition the learner's hand, or repeat a sound whenever the strike was correct. Over time, the entire demonstration might not be necessary. A shortened gesture could mean strike here. A specific sound could mean harder, stop, danger, or give it to me. The signal no longer needed to copy the whole action because both people had learned what it represented. That is the moment communication begins escaping the present. A gesture can refer to an object that is visible. A symbol can refer to something that is absent. A hunting motion might eventually mean the hunt planned for tomorrow. An animal sound might refer not to an animal currently nearby, but to the place where it was seen yesterday. Now, the group is not simply reacting to the world. It is discussing a world that does not currently exist. This transition may have been encouraged by increasingly complex toolmaking, food sharing, childcare, and coordinated movement. These activities require sequences. Do this before that, carry this there, wait until the others arrive. Avoid that location. Remember which plant caused everyone to reconsider their relationship with nature. Natural signals are excellent for immediate emotion. A scream communicates distress with impressive efficiency. But it is terrible at explaining that the river crossing will be safer after sunrise. For that, a community needs shared conventions. Repeated signals could gradually become shorter and more abstract. A realistic imitation of an animal might shrink into one-hand movement. A full throwing performance might become a flick of the wrist. A copied environmental sound might be simplified until it no longer resembled its original source. To outsiders, these signals could appear meaningless. Inside the group, they carried history. This is the hidden power of convention. Meaning does not have to live inside the signal itself. It can live inside an agreement between minds. And once one symbol exists, symbols can be combined. A gesture for animal followed by a gesture for direction might indicate where prey moved. A warning sound paired with a sign for water might identify a dangerous crossing. Order begins to matter. Repetition begins to matter. Small variations begin changing the message. That is not yet modern grammar, but the machinery is becoming visible. The first true symbol was probably not a beautifully pronounced word delivered during a cinematic sunrise. It may have been an ordinary gesture or controlled sound used so often that a group stopped seeing the action itself and started seeing the idea behind it. Language may have begun when humans learned that a movement could stand for something else. And once that door opened, reality was no longer the limit of conversation. The strange part is that this ancient communication system never disappeared. You used it today. Maybe you raised your eyebrows instead of asking a question. Maybe you pointed because giving directions felt like a personal attack on everyone involved. Maybe someone said, "That is interesting," while their face clearly filed a formal complaint. Words are only one layer of human communication. Underneath them, the older machinery is still running. Consider tone. The sentence, "What are you doing?" can express curiosity, suspicion, panic, admiration, or the immediate realization that someone has placed metal inside a microwave. The words remain identical. The meaning changes because pitch, speed, volume, and rhythm carry information that language alone does not. Hands do the same thing. People gesture even when speaking to someone who already understands every word. More surprisingly, they sometimes gesture while talking on the phone, where the other person cannot see them. The movement may still help organize thought, as though the brain's communication department refuses to hold a meeting without the hands present. Facial expressions often arrive before speech. A tiny pause, tightened jaw, or brief look away can reveal disagreement before a polite sentence appears to deny it. Humans are constantly reading these signals, usually without noticing. Social life depends on decoding messages nobody officially sent. Digital communication exposes how much spoken and face-to-face conversation normally provides. Remove tone, posture, timing, and expression, and suddenly a harmless message can look hostile. So we rebuild the missing channels with emojis, reaction images, punctuation, voice notes, and aggressively repeated letters. A simple "okay" may feel neutral. "Okay" feels enthusiastic. "Okay" feels like you should review your recent decisions. Memes work for a similar reason. They combine familiar images, expressions, and shared context into compact signals. To an outsider, the image may look absurd. To the group, it communicates an entire emotional situation instantly. That is remarkably close to how conventions may have worked in early communities. Meaning still lives partly inside shared experience. This is why communication becomes harder across cultures, generations, workplaces, and online communities. The signal may be visible, but the agreement behind it is missing. One group's respectful silence becomes another group's suspicious silence. One person's joke becomes another person's meeting with human resources. Modern humans did not graduate from body language into pure speech. We simply added words to a much older group chat, then spent the rest of history pretending the words were in control. But communication did more than help humans avoid predators, share tools, or coordinate where to find dinner. It may have changed what a human group actually was. Most animals can exchange information. Alarm calls can warn of danger, displays can threaten rivals, calls can attract mates or keep families together. But human communication became unusual because it increasingly allowed knowledge to accumulate beyond the experience of a single individual. One person discovered which stone fractured cleanly. Another learned where water remained during a dry season. Someone remembered which berries caused pain, confusion, and several hours of regrettable confidence. Through communication, those discoveries did not have to die with the person who made them. Information became communal property. That created an enormous advantage, but it also produced a new problem. Communication only works when individuals believe that signals are worth trusting. A warning ignored is useless. A false alarm repeated too often becomes background noise. A teacher who never shares accurate information does not create students. They create competitors with trust issues. So the evolution of richer communication was probably tied to cooperation, reputation, memory, and social relationships. Early humans needed to track who helped, who cheated, who shared, who protected children, and who mysteriously disappeared whenever difficult work began. Meaning was never only about objects. It was also about people. A signal could express loyalty, suspicion, apology, invitation, authority, or belonging. Repeated rituals, shared rhythms, and familiar calls may have strengthened group identity. To communicate in a group's particular way was to reveal that you understood its habits, dangers, alliances, and history. This may be the deepest transformation language eventually produced. It allowed humans to coordinate not only bodies but minds. A group could remember an event no single member personally witnessed. It could preserve instructions from the dead. It could plan for seasons that had not arrived. It could warn children about places they had never visited. It could create expectations, obligations, and stories powerful enough to shape behavior. Speech made these abilities faster and more precise, but the foundation was older: the willingness to share attention, interpret intention, and treat another person's signal as meaningful. Humanity did not become powerful simply because one brain grew smarter. It became powerful because many brains learned how to connect. Before there were cities, laws, schools, archives, or servers, there were bodies trying to make other bodies understand. And in that effort, humans began building something larger than survival. They began building a shared reality. So how did humans communicate before speech? Not with one primitive system waiting to become language, but with an entire network of signals already carrying meaning. Hands pointed, demonstrated, requested, warned, and remembered. Faces revealed emotions before anyone chose to share them. Eyes redirected attention. Touch created trust or stopped danger. Voices carried urgency, comfort, rhythm, and identity long before they carried sentences. Speech did not arrive and replace this system. It joined it. That is why a conversation today is never made of words alone. You listen to timing, hesitation, posture, expression, and tone. You notice when someone's smile is late. You hear when I'm okay means almost the exact opposite. Beneath every polished sentence, ancient communication is still operating. And perhaps that is the most important realization. Language did not begin when humans produced the first word. It began when one mind successfully changed what another mind understood. That could happen through a glance toward danger, a hand demonstrating a tool, a sound copied from an animal, or a gesture repeated until an entire community recognized its meaning. Every successful signal added another invisible connection between people. Eventually, those connections became traditions, plans, warnings, jokes, promises, and stories. They allowed knowledge to survive individuals and imagination to escape the present. Speech made the system faster. It made it flexible, it gave humans a nearly endless supply of combinations. But the original miracle was not the voice. It was shared meaning. So the next time words fail and you point, imitate, change your tone, or make one extremely specific facial expression, remember that you are not abandoning language. You are reaching underneath it. You are using a communication system older than civilization, older than writing, and possibly older than our species itself. And if this ancient machinery still shapes every conversation you have, then the story of language is not buried in the past. It is happening every time someone understands you.